my wife, after 20 years, has announced she does not like a mouthful of thistles. And here we are.
And look at you.
That sounds like a Clint Eastwood movie.
It sounds a mouthful of thistles. It does sound like a Clint Eastwood movie. This is delightful to see you, to see your face.
You too. I am excited that you have added, you've taken the podcast under your Meadowlark wing. It's nice to have your world fleshed out more here.
Well, it means that you're going to have to be in it more is what it's going to. We got to pull into those worlds and go and grab you because, yes, you, Mike Schur and Paz both have the same sensibilities we do. Do you know Joe Posnanski?
I do, yeah. Through Mike and the podcast, Joe and I have hung a bunch at baseball games, and he actually went on the road with me a little bit. Right before the pandemic, he rode with me to some Kansas comedy shows. So we're pals.
I'm very excited about this, and you just did a great intro for us. The podcast is a part of Meadowlark Media, and Nick Offerman will make his appearances over there because it is a fun playground where Mike Schur just has a lot of fun talking about absurd and ridiculous things, and some baseball is in there as well. He's got a new book, Where the Deer and the Antelope Play, the pastoral observations of one ignorant American who loves to walk outside. You write books with great frequency, I see. And the pandemic, you were bored and trapped inside and had to make something, right? It's a creator's got to make something.
That's right. I start to go crazy. It's weird because the American dream, we're sort of taught you should get paid as much as possible to do as little work as possible. That's how I was brought up. That's what the media always told me, and David Lee Roth videos. And then I come to learn as an adult, I go crazy if I'm not doing something, if I'm not of some use to somebody.
Is that where woodworking is? Like, you've got to be doing something. So you were in your house, and were you sculpting things, or was what you were sculpting this book and the idea that I have to have a different relationship or examine my relationship with the outdoors?
Well, this book was overdue. My generous publishers had made me a deal some years back for this book, and they reminded me with gentle firmness, hey, we don't want to have to get legal on your ass, so you might want to crank out that book. And I said, well, given the context, I have this idea about thinking about our relationship with nature and asking myself and us some questions about that relationship. And so the pandemic was handy for that anyway.
Do you explore it all the way that we're destroying nature, that we're destroying Earth? Are you one of those Hollywood wackos, those left-wing wackos worried about climate change and how we've destroyed the Earth with our dependence on fossil fuels? Or are you a reasonable human being, Snowflake?
I guess I'm super snowflakey, but more than, I don't know. I don't feel like the wacko side of it comes into play. Because I generally stand on a foundation of common sense. I come from a farming family, and so it's through reading agrarian writers that I admire, like Wendell Berry and James Rebanks, who point out the fallacy in not being familiar with things like who's growing our food, and how are our food systems related to our national health. Something that we don't ever think about, which to my way of thinking that's the wacko part, is that we blindly say, okay, I'll eat this puff product.
You wrote a book. Do you consider listening to audiobooks reading?
Oh, sure. I love audiobooks. It's it's a different metabolism, but I go running every day, and so that's 1 hour a day that I can be consuming content. So I'm deeply grateful for audiobooks. My wife and I also love them on the road.
But is it reading?
It's not reading.
But is it reading is what he's saying. He's not asking you if you like audiobooks. Is if somebody
I see you guys leading the witness, trying to get the answer that you guys.
I don't think that he understood the question.
Mr. Offerman, I listen to a bunch of audiobooks all the time, and basically what you're telling me is I now have the privilege of calling myself well-read.
This is a semantic trap you're leading me into. I think the act of reading involves viewing with your eyeballs the written word and comprehending them in your brain. I think, or with your fingertips if you happen to be reading Braille. But I don't think that the act of listening to an audible performance.
Nicely done on the fingertips there. You are super woke, my friend, the way that you did that. That was well done. The way you can do it with your fingers and your eyes, but not your ears. That's some bullshit, Offerman. That's some bullshit.
Please tell Mike Sure that I said that.
I want to get his opinions on pizza, Mike, because this is a person, he's a Chicago fan. I think is it Bears and Cubs?
Those are the Chicago teams. Yes, I haven't watched a football game for these many years, but I am a pretty obsessive Cubs fan.
Okay, but certainly this is all by way of building a bridge to just pizza. If you're a Chicago person, you have to have strong opinions on pizza. So, what are the pineapple on pizza? How do we feel about that?
That's a big no from this guy. I disagree with my friend Mike Sure about warm fruit. I'm a huge fan of blueberry pie, for example. But pineapple on pizza, no thank you.
How about if you have a pizza, do you want it to be thin? Do you want it to be thick? What is the best Sicilian style? What is the best of the pizzas? I believe Billy thinks the Chicago pizza is overrated.
Yeah, no, very overrated.
I mean, in truth, everyone should be allowed to like what they like, but I like a thick Chicago-style pizza. I have had pizza on the East Coast that I believe I've said in the past, if properly dried and trimmed, the New York pizza could make a nice box for the Chicago pizza.
Not for me. For me, it's pasta, Chicago pizza.
That's fair.
How do you feel about a stuffed crust? I believe that Billy had very strong opinions about the stuffed. That's a face that we would have never seen before from Nick Offerman behind a beard. He made a face. he made a face that seemed to be very passionate. But what happened? Do you have a controversial opinion here?
I don't think so. I mean, I think anything that's ridiculous, like deep frying a Snickers bar, is fantastic. I mean, what a time to be alive. We can have delicious pizza and put a bunch of delicious artery clogging shit actually in the crust.
Yeah.
That, in a manner of speaking, is wonderful. It's like a miracle. At the same time, it depends on your age and your context. When I first got cast as Ron Swanson, I couldn't go to a restaurant without people putting an extra inch of bacon on whatever I ordered.
Oh, what a great problem to have.
Really? You're complaining about that?
Well, it's incredible, and I spent about a year just relishing in it and going to restaurants more often than I had for that very reason. But then eventually my cardiologist said, here, I want to show you a picture of of this occluded sewage system. This is your arteries. And I said, "Oh, right, got it.
What does that person know?
I live in reality."
No, that person doesn't know what they're talking about.
What is better, a lifetime of restaurants where they put another slab of bacon on everything you eat, or living? Because I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't want to live in a world that doesn't have that happening to me once I've had it.
Tell us, how long did this go? And tell me every story. You just walk in everywhere, and please, how often was this happening?
Pretty frequently. And the thing is, nobody would ever say anything. Something again about the Ron Swanson character, it excites some sort of terror or respect in the public. Which is wonderful. So everyone's really polite to me. So I would order a cheeseburger or a steak or whatever it was, and it would just show up with a pile of bacon on it. And I would look around, and usually I could see like a chef through the kitchen window just giving me a thumbs up. And
That's wonderful.
I would tip my cap. And I literally, at times, felt so bad because often it would be more than I could eat, and not.
This is magical. What you're describing is heaven to me. Can you please explain unspoken perks that you've had in your life? Give me one that's better than that from living the Hollywood life, that just everywhere you showed up, somebody would throw an extra slab of bacon on something. Like, you don't have a lot of perks better than that one, do you?
That's tough to beat. I felt so bad sometimes that I would take a bunch of the bacon and put it in my pocket.
No,
So that
Pocket
no.
bacon. No, that's great, Dan. Then you have
They
it for the
wouldn't
rest of
get
the
their
day.
feelings.
No, I don't believe you.
Conversely, or similarly, I also, to this day, I'll go to a hotel. I was just shooting something in Calgary, and I ordered room service, and it came with like a double neat glass of Lagavulin. And the room service manager shows up, and he's like, "Hey," and I have no business pounding a glass of whiskey. I got to be up at 5 a.m, learning my lines and whatever. And this guy shows up and is like, I'm not going to send you your dinner without a huge glass of scotch. So that's the other perk that still happens a lot.
Were you at a near-death experience with your arteries? Did your cardiologist say, no, you've got to go plant-based and you got to be fully Hollywood foo-foo?
No, I mean, he just basically said we should find a balance. And I was down with that, a slab of bacon, a rasher of bacon is the proper term, once a week actually goes down a lot better than 4 or 5 times a week. You got to keep your desserts in the dessert category.
No, fuck balance. Find a new cardiologist. That's what I always say.
That is absolutely right, Billy.
To each his own.
How did you get in, and why are you in the Colin Kaepernick series, Black and White? It's available now on Netflix. What is the story behind you and that project?
For several years now, whenever my wife and I see anything from the great director and producer Ava DuVernay, as the credits roll and we wipe our eyes, we say, "Good God, more than anybody in our lifetime, Ava is doing what we got into this business to do, which is like directly spoon medicine to the people. The truth telling that she does and the activism that she engages in with her storytelling is so profound." And so I had no idea. I was a fan of Colin Kaepernick. I'm not a football fan, but I knew the story, and I was like, okay, clearly this is an incredibly brave and heroic guy, and most of his opponents are just dealing with misinformation or bigotry. Like it's clear what side to be on of this story. I had no idea that he was adopted by a white Wisconsin couple until Ava got a hold of me and we had a Zoom meeting. And she said, "I want you to play Colin Kaepernick's dad."
That sounds like a joke, right? So you're, So you're.
have you seen me with my top off? How did you get this idea? And so I was. It
sounds like a good comedy. Nick Offerman as Colin Kaepernick's dad.
It's uncanny. And amazingly, his adoptive dad was a sports star in the Wisconsin area that he grew up in. And so learning all that history and being involved with Ava and Colin has just been so rewarding. I think they've done an incredible job of, it's sort of the Colin Kaepernick origin story. It doesn't get into anything with his modern day 49ers stuff. It's all about when he was in high school in Central California, where they eventually moved, in a pretty white community. And as he was a teenager and began to see how he was treated differently than his peers because of the color of his skin. It's done with incredible restraint and a wonderful scope.
It's politics. It's politics and racism. It's not scope. It's things that we fight over now. What are you talking about? Like you're trying to bring an artful understanding to how Colin arrived at his worldview. Is that what you're telling us?
I guess that's the swing that we're taking. Yes, it's it's pretty beautifully done. It focuses on like microaggressions, and I think, you know, in most of the stuff that I do, including this series with Colin, we just always say if we can bring a few more people to the side of decency, that's that's how it's going to go. You know, I don't think there's any work of art we can make that's suddenly going to fix Virginia's gubernatorial race, but if we can just get a few voters, eventually that things like marijuana might become legal or gay marriage might become a banal, regular thing in our lives. So we're just plugging away.
The new book is Where the Deer and the Antelope Play, the pastoral observations of one ignorant American who loves to walk outside. I want to talk to him more, but he's got to go. Check out his work with Mike Schur occasionally on the podcast as part of Meadowlark Media. Thank you for being on with us. Before you get out of here, though, as it comes to the Colin In Black and White, which is now available on Netflix, as you pair the work you're doing there against what you see happening in America over the last 5 years and what you've seen from the NFL still blackballing him, even though you're purposely, I'm guessing, keeping that part of the story out of there because I'm guessing you want to show the formative years. This is how we got to moment in history. This is the artistic path that we're taking. Nick Offerman as his father. When you pair this against our times, which are hostile and cruel and fighting everywhere, and you're trying to attack it with art, how do you pair those things as someone who's a conscious American, conscious about our planet, conscious about our freedom and our freedom to create?
Well, it's a great question. Thank you. And the Colin series is a great example. Like when I promote it on my social media, I say, I'm very honored to be part of this with Ava and Colin. You should check it out. You know, and then I get all of these trolls coming at me with like quarterback statistics where they're like, yeah, he only threw 7 for 40, you know. And I'm like, you're not listening. And here's the thing is we're in such an incredible sort of bifurcated state where no matter if you're red or blue or if you like all people or white people more, or whatever your stance, whatever conversation we get into, pretty quickly some hot button topic comes up: vaccination, you know, voting rights, racism, what have you. And immediately we back into our tribal sort of bubbles. And so my feeling is to try and just appeal to everyone on a level of decency and positivity. So instead of saying, let's get into this argument and yell at each other about you know, whether Big Bird is a communist or not, let's just say, hey, Big Bird got vaccinated. That's cool. He's thinking of the common good. We all should get vaccinated. And you're going to have a lot of people yell in opposition to that, but I'm not going to engage that. All I'm going to do is say, here's the right thing to do. Here's what I've discerned from my common sense and from my attempts at empathy. And I hope you'll join me. And then I think eventually more and more people will. But that's the human race. We'll always be flawed. We'll always be fighting over something. So instead of engaging with name calling, I'm going to just try to keep making positive things, like my friend Mike taught me.
Soft liberal Nick Offerman. Look at his politics. Your politics are showing, Offerman. Thank you for being on with us. The book, what do you want people to know about it? This has become a full promotional. I'm uncomfortable with what a promotional vehicle for you this has been. Next time we will come on and talk about things that aren't just your manifold projects.
That's fine with me. I'm also uncomfortable in commercial mode. My book is full of questions. You know, it's questioning the mistakes that we make as a society. That's all. If you take a step back and pretend you're from another planet, it's easy to say, "Oh, you guys really screwed some stuff up here." And just to have the ability to say, okay, sure, we always will. We're human. Let's own that and see if we can improve it and do better for ourselves. Or it's about 350 pages. So that's also 350 fire starters if you use one page at a time.
It's not very eco-friendly. In fact, you're circling back on the previous conversation. We're better off not reading that in book form. We're better off audio reading that.
It's true. We're big proponents of recycling, recycled and alternative paper sourcing. I have a hard time getting over the artifact of an actual paper book, but we definitely need to do better vis-a-vis our forests.
Are any of you disappointed by the lack of Offerman thicket on his face? It's disconcerting to me. I don't know what to do, how long he has been beardless, but it's confusing to me, and I'm sorry I'm doing this to you.
I'm going the other way on it. He's given me confidence that I can probably go clean shaven because I'm always worried about what's under there. But it is indeed soup season, and that's problematic with a beard.
It is. It's tough, you guys. I get it. I understand that whole thing. At the same time, as an actor, I am clean shaven for my job, even all through the Ron Swanson years and before and after. Sometimes I have whiskers, sometimes I don't. And I will ask you all to accept me as I am, humbly.
This guy's not getting bacon in restaurants. You're not. It's not coming at the same rate. You can't. You got to admit that the bacon has stopped coming if you start walking into these places without a beard.
I can't argue with that. That's the truth. It's the people start to think maybe they should put it in a smoothie or something. They get confused.
In your pockets, for real? Like you'd leave with it. You'd leave with bacon in your pockets. Is there the chance that I can find a pair of pants in your house that still has a piece of bacon in it from one drunken happy night?
Oh, hell no. I mean, I may be foolish in a lot of ways, but I'm not going to go to bed with a piece of bacon uneaten in my pocket.
Thank you for being on with us, Nick. Always enjoy it.
Great to see you. Thanks, you guys.